In terms of what's my basic view of what's going on with myself as a human mind, and therefore I think other people are going through a similar thing, though they might see it differently, is sort of twofold, but it's the same thing to me, but there's more organic way, because the more mechanical way is dry in certain respects, misses some aspects of it. So the first thing is, I said recently, it's like when you're, this cliche version, but it's good enough to get the idea. You know, you're dreaming, your old school, your old style alarm goes off, ring, ring, you know, and you're in the dream, and you're in Tibet in a monastery, and there's a school bell, you know, and it enters into the dream this way. It gets reinterpreted slightly. And, like what it is reinterpreted, but maybe the sound is exactly the same. Okay, so that's the first part, is that's how I think we are when we're awake. Our eyes are open, we're getting more information, so it's better. It doesn't go from, you know, alarm, bedside alarm to school bell. But still, it goes from red patches to it's an apple, and so forth. Okay. Now, the second thing is I can explain through a thought experiment. I mean, imagine you had a computer system, and it generated a virtual reality for you, and you were, you know, your brain was in a vat, or you're in your tank with a helmet on, whatever, and you're in this virtual reality. And you also have a robot wirelessly connected to this thing that goes around and gets information from the real world, and you then, in your virtual reality, try to create a model of the real world. So the robot goes to the Sistine Chapel and walks around. That allows your computer to create a model of the Sistine Chapel that you can walk around. Perhaps you even sometimes drive the robot and walk where the robot, make the robot go somewhere. Okay. So imagine that possibility. Well, that's the situation we are in. This conscious mind gets objects we know are pieced together from much more raw information from the eyes and ears and stuff, pieces together this holodeck experience that we walk among, and we copy what we think is out there in the real world, but we know that's not true too, that we see something as a unified phenomena that's really, it has blurry edges with its environment, apophenia, all of these things become a part of the holodeck experience we have. And it's like, well, if I'm really, really rational and I make sure that model is as honest as can be about the real world, then I can pretend it's not a model. No, it's model no matter what. If you're a really, really good, accurate model maker, it's still a model. You spend energy on that. For that matter, you deserve credit for it, and so forth. So this is the situation we're in. See, we're constantly getting information. Both of these situations are about information. The human example with the dreaming is to emphasize that the information can be emotional. You know, the other one is to emphasize a mechanics where we understand that, yeah, a robot walking around with cameras and sound and even texture sensors and for smell, chemical sensors, and all sorts of sensors could feed data into a computer, create a virtual reality. That's what we're going through. Okay, mechanically. The other half, to me, is the same kind of example, but there's an emotional feed through to it, right? We're really processing emotions. All of our information really comes in an emotional bed of an emotional lettuce, all right? And it could be very, very thin, and so that you have an analytic or a mathematical thought, and a lot of the emotion is drained out of it. But there's always some emotive. Every idea or perception that we have is really a feeling. That's why even sensations like red or green or blue, they just seem like, hey, they're the information, the color. No, there are emotions associated with those colors for people, and there's statistical commonality between it, but there's also just a personal reaction to a particular color, smell, so on. It's not just a coincidence. It's built out of a kind of emotion. Some of the emotions get more and more informational, especially as they're reduced. All you need to get reliable information out of a stream of data and information processing is for the signal to be just the slightest amount more than the noise. If it's even a little bit more than the noise, then given enough processing time and data, you can get to the information. If the signal is much stronger than the noise, then that's quick. You can get it as it comes in and it's reliable. Either way, whatever the noise level for a particular human or us as a society or built into us as embodied minds, as long as the signal is greater than the noise, we can get information, and we pretty much know that sometimes the signal is greater than the noise. I want to say. So another thing I want to say regards the use of the term unconscious and subconscious. Let's forget that. Let's just talk about communicating with non-verbal parts of our conscious mind. Okay, I've always been struck by, as they discovered the left-right half of the brain dichotomy, and I understand it was overblown, but there's more than a little grain of truth in this. For example, you have the language center on with the left side. So the spoken language is all done by the left side of the brain. That implies that the right half of the brain, which we know can have its own personality and does have its own personality, can't speak words. It can draw you a picture, it can do all kinds of other image mechanics, but it can't speak words. So how does it communicate with, you communicate with yourself with the voice inside your head sometimes. How does the part that can't do that talk to you? It gives you visions. If you are like, that means I'm crazy, then you're going to end up with some sort of a right brain dominance, and all of you guys are going to end up being right-handed writers instead of 50-50, and so on and so forth. You dominate with rigidity, and your literally verbal part dominates. Now, a left-handed person, of course, at least when they write, even though the left part of the brain is generating like the word stream, the left can add in poetry and interpretation and make its sort of creative mistakes and all the clever ways it has to communicate non-verbally to a half of the brain that just considers itself verbal. I think that I can feel this verbal part, and I can feel semi-separate and united the metaphorical, artistic expression part, and I don't pigeonhole the artistic part into, well, you just like writing poems and, to get girls. No, it's limited. It might say, hey, I think we should go to the grocery. It can't say that. It has to give me a vision of the grocery, and then I'm a dumb asshole and I just whatever. So it has to create a whole story, like maybe you'll meet somebody lovely down there, whatever. It's trying to seduce me just like I'm trying to seduce it. In my case, I'm just open to those messages. And I don't know if my left hemisphere dominates or not, but I think most everybody else's does. Anyway, it's because of a verbal bigotry, really. Let's not even call it a bias. It's a bigotry. If people don't speak a certain way, we're bigoted against them, and this is tantamount to bigotry against half of our own minds.